Hi everyone, my name is Ernest. I'm doing my talk on Ernest Shackleton and his voyage across the Antarctic. Sir Ernest Shackleton went down to the Antarctic with the goal to cross it from one side to the other. He left on the eve of World War I in his ship, the Endurance, for a 2,700-kilometer journey across the continent. As you're probably aware, everything went wrong. The ship got stuck in pack ice, which closed in around its hull. Even though it was a very strong vessel, in the end, the ice crushed the hull, and the only thing holding the ship together was the ice tightly packed in around it. The men were stuck on this vessel for 10 months, surviving off penguin meat and seal blubber. Then, for a further 5 months, they lived a very precarious existence on the sea ice in camps, living under 3 upturned lifeboats from the main expedition ship. They were all going to die, and everyone knew it, including Shackleton himself. But somehow, through his leadership, he got them through it. The key takeaway for me is the fact that Shackleton had what we now call emotional intelligence. He knew that teams are made up of individuals, and every individual is different. If you want to have a group of people pull as one to achieve a singular goal, in this case survival, then you need to tell each person a slightly different version of the story. In Shackleton's case, the ship goes down, they spend 10 months on the ship, 5 months on the pack ice, then the men get into 3 lifeboats and paddle for their lives. The nearest piece of land they can find is a jagged rock called Elephant Island. They fall ashore and they celebrate. As far as they're concerned, they save themselves, but this is not the end. Shackleton knows that they're going to die there. Nobody's going to be able to find them. The only hope for them is to get to the most seaworthy boat and attempt the journey across the Southern Ocean to the nearest habitable place. A little dot in the Southern Ocean, some 1,500 kilometers away from Elephant Island, South Georgia. Against all the odds, 2 storms, 1 massive hurricane, and navigating using a sextant on a 23-foot-long pitching boat with no keel in the roughest ocean in the world, often in complete darkness, and only seeing the sun twice to navigate, they managed to find the little dot in the ocean. If they had missed this, the next land was 4,500 kilometers away further, and obviously, they'd be dead. To further their terrible luck, they arrived on the southern side of the island. The trouble was the whaling stations that were their salvation on the north side of the island. In between them, there was a mountain that nobody had climbed. They had no maps, no climbing gear, and no tents. 3 of the men had been incapacitated due to the trials and tribulations of the journey, leaving only Shackleton and 2 others to complete it. So what did they do? They pushed nails to the soles of their boots for grip and did the first crossing of the mountains of South Georgia in a time that modern mountaineers would have been unable to replicate even today. They reached the station, raised the alarm, and saved all 22 men they left behind on Elephant Island. This story truly is quite remarkable. As you can see, this is the ship, the Endurance, when it was stuck in ice. And here's a little overview of their entire journey. Up top here is where they started. This is where Endurance set sail from the whaling station. You can follow the red lines here. You can see that on December 7th, 1914 is when they first entered the ice. They were able to sludge through this all the way down to the very bottom. This is January 18th, 1915. This is where the Endurance becomes really trapped in ice and they're unable to move. But with the ocean and the currents and whatnot, they're able to drift slowly up here and they stop. At this dot is where the Endurance finally collapses and is no longer usable. A couple miles north is when it sinks to the ocean. Since the Endurance, the actual vessel itself, is sunk, they use lifeboats and travel hundreds of miles all the way up here. From here, this is where they'll finally be able to get rescued. So as you can see, it's a very long journey, and without Ernest Shackleton's leadership, him and his men would have not been here today. Thank you for listening to this talk.